Welcome into the roundtable. I am Brad Wakai. That is my co-host Tyson Gentry. We are coming at you right now for a college football preview of this weekend. We have Week 6 college football, and we're just going to dive right in, Tyson. Let's just highlight the big games that are happening on Saturday. Quite a bit of few ranked matchups that we can just discuss before we get into the games that we have circled that we may have plays on. And we are going to give out some picks and money making time as well, just a couple for us as we are recording early in this week. But let's start here. 12 o'clock, Tennessee is going into LSU. Tennessee ranked number 8, LSU number 25. The spread right now on FanDuel is 2.5. Take it wherever you want. If you want to go spread, if you want to go just game in general or game overall, let's just dive in.
Yeah, so to me, the first thing that jumps out about this is the over-under is a bit ridiculous for me. Was it 63.5, 67.5, something like that?
63.5, yep.
So LSU can't score points. And Tennessee might be able – I was saying this to you pre-show. Tennessee might be able to score 49. But I don't know if LSU gets 14. And this is coming from an LSU fan. We're talking about a team that was lifeless for 40 minutes of the game against a bad Auburn team a week ago, threw for 85 yards. Look, man, if it's not B.J. Ojulari forcing a strip sack that turns into a touchdown, they're getting ran out of the stadium by Auburn, by Brian Harsin, right? And this is a Tennessee team who happened to have had the perfect bye week. Hendon Hooker he got thrown right on his throwing shoulder, it looked like in that Florida game, and now he gets a week off. He's back. I expect Hendon Hooker to put up a lot of points and a lot of yards this week, but I just don't think LSU's got the firepower to play with these guys, man. I don't care if it's you could play in Baton Rouge, you could play in the middle of nowhere. Tennessee's just better.
Yeah, it is an interesting line when you look at. I mean, especially when you look at how successful Tennessee's been so far. That offense looks legit. They've had big wins, and with a quarterback in Hendon Hooker that looks like a legit Heisman type of guy so far through 4 games in Tennessee's schedule. Now, and on the flip side, LSU coming off a disappointing loss against Florida State to start the year. Seemed to get it right a bit. They had some big wins over some competition that wasn't great, with the big scores. And then seemingly laying an egg against Auburn, which is a scary thing if you're an LSU fan going into this matchup. I agree. I mean, just from your analysis, I think Tennessee is going to put up a lot of points. I think a betting angle here for me would be potentially looking into the team total. But I do want to dig in a little bit more and really see why this line is about 2.5 on FanDuel, 3 I think some other books here. So that's something interesting, but should be about 69 degrees. I don't know wind-wise, if that's going to be a huge, have a huge impact there, but just something interesting with that line out there that I guess, the odds makers think this game's going to be a lot closer than you and I have this one.
Tennessee averages 48.5 points a game. Right? Like LSU struggles to score 48 against Southern or whoever it was that they played in week 2. It's a different kind of football, and I understand there's injuries and things like that, and it's Brian Kelly and it's home field and it's all these things and it's LSU and you don't go there. Noon's different, brother. It's a different beast there playing at nighttime, man.
TCU goes and visits Kansas. Game day finally coming to Kansas. Kansas finally gets some respect from the top 25 people.
You needed to be invited to this thing, man.
I know. 5-0. I was on the team total. Obviously, I've been tooting my own horn here, screaming about it. They're 5-0, 2-0 in the Big 12 and leading this conference. TCU puts up 1 million points. They just came off an absolute shellacking of Oklahoma, which was impressive, led by Sonny Dykes in that offense. And, Dugan, the quarterback, he's had a good year so far. Line right now, TCU -7 on the road. It could be a point where, Kansas is a little overvalued here, that we've seen. They're kind of come back to earth a bit. But I expect this to be an electric atmosphere down there at Kansas. As they just had a sellout last week, this should be even a bigger thing that a game there's there.
Every single passing week, it becomes less funny that they were in games with Oklahoma and they beat Texas a year ago. And now it felt like, maybe we were just laughing for no reason. That being said, TCU just put up 670 yards against Oklahoma, 361 yards on the ground, 9 yards a tote. Man, it's a different way of running the football. Like, you go to the Big Ten West and they run the football to control the clock. TCU runs the football to hit home runs. And I don't really know if Kansas has played the level of competition. I know everybody liked Iowa State preseason. I wasn't all the way on them. They make field goals. We have a different conversation today. I think TCU scores a lot of points. I'm just hoping that Kansas keeps this thing rolling because it's starting to feel like 2007 in here.
I completely agree. Like, it's starting to get that vibe. And Lance Leopold is a great coach. I think he's going to get calls for Wisconsin and Nebraska. Yeah, it's Bill, this guy's. If he wins this one, come on.
If they're bowl eligible through 6 weeks at Kansas, like he could lose out for the next 3 years and still have a job.
Over 67.5 in this one. That's something I have circled to keep my eye on. It may be a little too high, but when I look at it, I mean, TCU's offense is awesome with Sonny Dykes, and Kansas got lit up by Duke. They can also score points, and TCU's been susceptible to giving up some points here. I know Oklahoma couldn't really take advantage, but Dylan Gabriel, before he got hurt, was starting to get it rolling against them. Kansas's offense has not slowed down. It only did against Iowa State last week. Maybe it's coming back to earth a bit, but I don't know. Against a softer type of defense in TCU, I think this could be easily in the 70s.
And one thing that I do want to point out with Kansas, too, is last week showed that they can win in different ways. Whereas the first handful of weeks of the season, it was like, well, somehow Kansas is overpowering these teams, getting them off the field like, you can't play with us. And then a 14-11 slugfest, 213 yards of total offense. They have a couple rushing touchdowns to get them on the board. But it's nice to see Kansas deal with the adversity, especially as a up-and-coming program, because generally we see it every year, man. There's somebody that starts out 4-0, they get punched in the mouth, and then they can't play. Kansas said we could play.
If you want to watch that one, that's going to be at 12 o'clock on FS1 after hosting College Game Day in the morning on Saturday. 3:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Following that, we have another Big 12 matchup. Texas Tech against Oklahoma State, coming off a big win over Baylor in the rematch of the Big 12 championship game last year. That line right now on FanDuel is 9.5 in favor of Oklahoma State, as they are given 9.5 points. Over under sitting at 69.5. What are your thoughts on this game? I mean, Texas Tech obviously beating Texas in overtime. Kind of been a little feisty so far this year, but no wins on the road to start.
Well, first of all, Oklahoma State and Baylor should play every weekend forever because these have been awesome. I don't know if those two fan bases will be able to handle it, but the last two matchups, I mean, like game of the year contenders, both of them. And as far as what I expect from this game, same thing I expected from Oklahoma State before the year, is people are going to get overly excited about who they're playing. People are going to think that there's a little bit of weakness. Oklahoma State's good. Like, the special teams is really good. Spencer Sanders is good. The defense is good enough. And that win that Texas Tech had over Texas is looking less impressive by the week, which is a brutal blow for the kids with the Texas Big 12 championship ticket.
Yeah, I know. And that's my analysis on this game too. Oklahoma State, I think, even though coming off that emotional victory, this is a very, very senior-laden team. A lot of experience over a Texas Tech team who's young and with a second-year head coach who's coming in here and trying to change the culture. Culture is already established there at Oklahoma State. I think this is a game I got my eye on, laying the points with Oklahoma State in this one. I just think they're better than Texas Tech and where they're at right now, and I expect them to roll in this one. 3:30 on Fox, Utah at UCLA. This is a big game in the Pac-12. 4-1 Utah, 2-0 in the Pac-12, going into UCLA 5-0, 2-0 in the Pac-12, coming off a huge home victory over Washington, who previously was rolling. Right now, on FanDuel Sportsbook, Utah is minus 4.5. That actually just moved since 2 hours, where Utah was at a 4-point favorite, so it ticked up a half point. UCLA a 4.5-point home dog, over under at 65.5. Just your overall analysis on this one.
Well, first of all, last week made me feel a lot better about the Utah Utes. Right, this is a team that in Oregon State, who they were playing, that took USC essentially down to the wire. And Utah just got them the hell out of there quick, immediately. The one thing that was a little bit tricky is they allowed like over 400 yards of total offense to Oregon State. They were able to, I think they had 4 interceptions, something like that, or they forced 4 takeaways. It's going to be harder to come by with this UCLA team because UCLA was one, Brad, preseason, you were saying, look, don't be surprised if they start 5-0. And they're here at 5-0. And when Michael Penix scored that last touchdown, we kind of thought, or the first touchdown of the night against UCLA, again, like how I was saying with Kansas, it was like, well, this thing, it might get ugly. And then UCLA just woke up, started playing ball, man. Chip Kelly's got these guys where they need to be.
Yeah, they have it rolling now. And it was a little shaky. You know, South Alabama, they competed with UCLA at home for a long time. I think the problem is with UCLA when it's a home game, nobody shows up to these
There's nobody
games.
there.
There's more energy on the road. I think they play better when they're on the road. I mean, obviously, Friday night against Washington, that's a different story. These Saturday games, man, nobody can get out there in time to the Rose Bowl coming from Beverly Hills campus. So I don't know, it's interesting.
And I'm pissed that last year I was talking up DTR, saying, "Oh, that's my dark horse for high." I was a year early. That's all. I was just a year early. The dude could play. He could play a little bit.
I did not like him to start his career. And one of my buddies that we do another show with the NFL Pick Show, he knows. He always makes fun of me. He's like, "Your boy DTR." I'm like, dude, that guy stinks. And this year, of course, I'm having to eat my words on him. He's looked really good, and he's actually, grown into a good college quarterback. With that being said, though, I think it's time we stop disrespecting Utah. I think we still have that thought in our head of them going into Florida and losing, and they just have flown way under the radar. This is a team that we're talking about preseason, the college football playoff. Nothing's changed. They probably should have won that game, and if they're 5-0, we're looking at them way differently. Like, well, these guys are a top 5 team in the country. But instead, they have that early loss. They are still coached by Kyle Whittingham, who are physical. They still have a really good quarterback. And I think this is a team to beat still in the Pac-12, besides USC, my preseason pick, who maybe they look a little bit more vulnerable than they did to start as they play tougher competition. But I think that the disrespect towards Utah needs to end. I think this may be a statement game that they can make with that line at 4.5.
Well, that's another thing, too, that's been funny to me about Utah is Cam Rising is subtly one of the premier dual threat quarterbacks in the country. One of the guys that he got 75 yards of the ground a week ago, a couple of touchdowns, no interceptions, doesn't turn the ball over. They play smart football. And to me, this is exactly where Utah would want to be. I think if you could ask them preseason, you ask the coaching staff, obviously they're going to want to be 5-0. They want to win 14 games and go undefeated. But the entire country is focused on USC right now. And I think Utah is just going to keep racking up wins. And then we're going to get down the line here. And then I think Utah's got a little something for your boys.
We'd be remiss not to mention this one. BYU, 16th in the country, facing Notre Dame in Allegiant Stadium. Now, BYU disappointed me last week against Utah State. They could have backdoor covered that one. But I honestly think they were looking ahead to this one. Here's what kind of shocked me. Notre Dame to start the year looked good against Notre Dame. Good against Ohio State, and then completely the wagons fell off. Now they're a 3.5-point favorite after they completely took apart UNC. They've had a week off last week. What are we thinking about this one? This is interesting. Are we kind of overreacting to the last time we saw Notre Dame? Are we overreacting to the last thing we saw with BYU where they looked like they struggled against Utah State, who to start couldn't even field a competent team to start the year?
Well, I do think it's an overreaction on both sides, but that's the beautiful part about college football. It's an overreaction until it's not, because college football is the most momentum-based. It's a game, right? Because it's football, but I don't know what you'd call it, organization or whatever. Like you said, Notre Dame looked like they were going to beat Ohio State for 3/4 of that football game, and they look like shit. And then they come out and they get disrespected by the public and play in North Carolina. They beat North Carolina, and they should have beat them, but they beat them impressively. And then on the other side, BYU starts getting a lot of love in the betting market, and they hurt you and other people and the pocketbooks of a lot of the people that bet on them. And now it's like, I'm not touching those guys. And so, Notre Dame beat UNC, but you didn't bet on them last week either. You don't believe in them. So this to me feels more like a pick 'em than I would have thought preseason. Preseason, I would have had BYU just blowing the doors off of Notre Dame. I'm not impressed by Notre Dame's talent hardly anywhere. But they kind of have things going, and they're the kind of football team. They play the style of football that will give BYU problems.
Matchup predictor from ESPN has a 70% chance that Notre Dame wins this game, which is very interesting. I mean, Pick Center team rankings has this right at a 3-point game. But I look at this, and again, this is going to be skewed towards BYU since they play a little bit softer schedule to date than Notre Dame. But 34.4 points per game for BYU's offense compared to 25 for Notre Dame. BYU allows 26 points per game. Notre Dame allows 24. 445 total yards on offense for BYU, 369 for Notre Dame. And BYU allows 335 on defense, while Notre Dame allows 355. BYU has the better quarterback than Drew Pine. Like Jaron Hall is a good player.
Yeah.
You know, and Drew Pine's come in. He's played well. 459 yards and 6 touchdowns and a pick. I don't know. I mean, it's everything screaming BYU to me. So why is Notre Dame favored? I mean, from an aspect like that, I think BYU has better offensive playmakers, maybe even playmakers in general, besides Mike Mayer. So this was an interesting one to me. Something I have circled that I'm definitely going to keep my eye on as we get into this for Saturday.
If third quarter BYU shows up, this isn't even a game. If that team that played Utah State in the third quarter shows up, I mean, that was impressive, the way they kept it rolling. But unfortunately, according to the line, it sure looks like a lot of people were pissed and had the first half over and must have shut it off. Because, like, if you watch that game, and I know you did, that third quarter from BYU was really impressive. And the defense forcing a couple fumbles, I think that's going to be huge too, because Notre Dame is still vanilla and they're still pretty basic on offense, and they're going to try to dink it. You have to force them to make mistakes, which is something that they try not to do. And if BYU can play their way into forcing them to make mistakes, look, the way this game is going to go to me is Notre Dame either wins a close one or BYU boat races these dudes at the stadium.
I like that. All right, last one here for the big games, and we have to say it just because I think we might see a slaughter on Saturday. Texas A&M goes into Alabama. I mean, I think the only really reason why I'm kind of contemplating maybe not playing this point spread is I don't know if Bryce Young's going to play. Right now, Alabama is 23.5-point favorites, over/under sitting at 51.5. How does Texas A&M score on this Alabama defense? That offense is horrible.
The offense is horrible. The defense has been a letdown. Like, it's one thing to have 10 5-star defensive linemen on the roster, but at the end of the day, bro, they're just 5-star kids from high school. They gotta put college tape out there, and a lot of them, it's like a little bit overrated here and a little bit overrated there, discombobulated. And by the way, Jimbo Fisher has the exact same record through this many games as Kevin Sumlin. I'm gonna keep saying it until it's not true, but it still is. $95 million fully fucking guaranteed, baby. Shout out to College Station.
You know what's nice though, Tyson? You know what we get to do as bettors? We just bet the under.
Yep.
We got it for plus money. And at this point, they might be sitting at 3-3 through 6 games.
Do they even get to their classic 8-4 or 8-5?
I don't think so.
Or,
I really don't. You know what's funny? That App State loss, that really fucked them. And it helped us because they got to go through the gauntlet now. And they should have lost to Arkansas.
That's the thing, is we talk about the App State loss, but we don't talk about how shitty they've looked in the games that they've won. We're talking about this team. Oh, yeah, Bama's going to kill them. Well, they could have been undefeated, and this line might have been 16 because Bama's look like world beaters, right? And if A&M has some other things go their way, maybe they're sitting here 4-1, and it's a different line. A&M is not impressive. A&M doesn't have the offensive firepower to compete in the SEC, and the defense is soft. They're just soft. Like, they play soft football. They play Texas A&M football, and we're sitting here for the 8th year in a row or whatever it is, and we're shocked that this is happening again. And it's like, watch the fucking games, watch the kids, and look, Devin Achane, I thought was a good player. If he doesn't get the ball, it doesn't really matter. And then when he does get the ball, it's disappointing. So that's your explosion on offense, right? Gone. See ya. And on defense, it's a bunch of draft prospects. And that's all they are. And I don't know where people are pulling this tape from, but I'm not impressed with anybody in A&M.
It seems like Alabama finally figured out that they got a really good transfer as well. Jahmyr Gibbs, 18 carries last week against Arkansas for 206 yards and 2 touchdowns. About time, first and foremost. If Bryce Young can't go, it's going to be Jalen Milroe. We'll see. I mean, against Arkansas, 4 of 9 for 65 and a touchdown. We'll see if that's good enough. I don't think they're going to have to put up too many points in this one to win. But, if we're talking about margin, that's something we got to take a look at and see, especially with the line being where it's at.
What did Nick Saban say earlier this year when they were going to go play Texas, unprompted, was last time we went to Texas as the favorite. We got our butts kicked. He's been thinking about this shit for a year. In the offseason stuff with Jimbo, and they were going at each other's throats. Look, I know 23.5 seems inflated. Nick Saban is going to have some shit. And Nick Saban's calling timeout on 4th and 2 with 3 seconds left just to pad a field goal, man. I mean, he hates Jimbo. They're going to run this thing up.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's go into there now. Games we have circled. That's it for, kind of the big games, big top 25 matchups. So we can look at a few different things here before we get our picks out, before we close the show out. Here's a couple games that I have circled to start. I'll give some thoughts. I don't know if you have kind of similar eyes for the game or not. Louisville -2.5 on the road against Virginia. Malik Cunningham, if he's not out, I'm going to scratch this one. But if he plays, I think they're definitely better than a field goal in Virginia. Virginia's offense is not good, and that defense, Louisville should be able to shred up. So that's something I have. How many times
have we said that so far this year? Louisville's offense should.
I know. But, I mean, that Virginia defense is bad.
They're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. It's cavalier.
This one I think is too big of a line. Mississippi State's 8.5-point favorites hosting Arkansas. I'm leaning towards Arkansas on that one. I have my eye on it. I know Arkansas has had 2 disappointing losses in a row, and I still think they're better than 8.5 points on the road against Mississippi State, who's very finesse. So those are 2 games I have circled, and I'll let you kind of jump into a couple before I give some of the rest of mine.
Well, I already mentioned I had Tennessee -2.5. I think that one is my play of the week here in college football. But another one that I love, and I don't even think it matters who's playing quarterback, Texas team total over 37.5. Like I said, Oklahoma just allowed 668 yards to TCU and 338 yards on the ground, 9 yards to carry. And now you're getting the best running back in the country is coming to play ball. I just think Texas is, first of all, these Red River rivalry, we always talk about them being shootouts. It's because somebody jumps out to a 40-20 lead and then somebody else is allowed back in the game. That's not going to happen this week with Oklahoma. I don't think Oklahoma gets back into this thing. I think Texas kills them early, and I think it's a 40, 50-point outpour for the Texas Longhorns on offense this week.
I mentioned a bit TCU Kansas leaning towards the over. It's not official yet. Here's one that intrigued me. Miami, Ohio is 5.5 at home against Kent State, who hasn't been great this year so far. Now, they did have that game that kept it close against Georgia, and everybody's like, whoa, a little scared. But 2 power ratings I trust actually have Miami, Ohio, the favorite. So I want to look into that one and see why this line is at 5.5. So I'm intrigued about why it's looking like that. And then the other one I already mentioned too, Oklahoma State -9.5, Utah -4. That's up to 4.5 now. Just keeping my eye on those as well.
I think Utah kicks the shit out of UCLA this weekend. I think 4.5 is, to me, that's a number that I'm comfortable playing. I'm going to see where that settles. I'm comfortable with it up to 5.5, but I think they're going to win by double digits. They're just better. They're more physical. They're better coached. They're more well-rounded, and they've been here, right? You're not playing Washington. This isn't another upstart team that you can kind of dilly-dally around with till you get things rocking. Utah's going to come out on fire. I think Utah has something to prove to the rest of the country. And by the way, like you said, Utah hasn't been on television, like national television, it feels like, since week 1. I think Whittingham has something. He's got to have the boys ready.
I got my eye on Georgia -29.5 against Auburn. I know they had a bad game against Mizzou, and I know Auburn looked good against LSU. But, I mean, come on, man. I mean, really? Like, you're telling me – I don't know. It just feels like Georgia just needs to figure it out. But maybe this is the time – and I'm thinking on the other side too, maybe this is the time where we kind of see all those losses they had as we pick up the schedule on defense and the questions about the offense. Maybe that is coming to fruition a bit. So I would never play Auburn here. I don't know if I want to play Georgia -29.5, but just want to see your thoughts on that, honestly.
Yeah, that's weird because Kent State wasn't a good game for Georgia. Missouri obviously wasn't a good game for Georgia. After they looked like week 1, 2, and 3, really, they look like the best team in the country. I don't know if they've been letting their foot off the gas. It feels different than last year's Georgia team, though, for sure, which was a team that was going to come out, show everybody they were the best team in the country because they felt disrespected. Now it feels a bit of entitlement is going on down there. in Georgia with those guys, but they have to get right. And there's not a better get right team on the damn schedule. There just can't be. This is one where if they should double this spread, they should win this game by 60 points. If you're going athlete for athlete, football player for football player, they're way better everywhere. Their backups are way better everywhere. I'm not believing in Georgia's ability to finish teams this year. First of all, they're not getting off to the best starts either, but they're not able to instill the fear that they were a year ago. And I think the last 2 weeks we've seen that guys are, it's a slow first quarter, and then the other team gets to learn, oh, we can play with these guys. I'm not scared of these guys. There's no Jordan Davis, N'Kobe Dean. There's a whole bunch of guys that are gone now. And so you're talking yourselves into Keely Ringo is an awesome player, but there's one of him. You got to have 11 guys out there ready to put the game away, and I don't think Georgia has 11.
That's interesting. It might be a no play for me on that then. Ole Miss minus 17.5 on the road at Vandy. It feels like that's short. I want to look at the scheduling spot. Maybe that's something Ole Miss looks ahead on, but I think they can score a lot of points in that one. So maybe it's a team total play instead of the spread play. And here's one you're going to love. I got my eye on this over. Western Kentucky goes into University of Texas San Antonio. That line is 72.5. I think that might be too low.
Oh, this is
both offenses are electric.
Yeah, this is easy. This one's easy. This is automatic. It's Tuesday, and this is the play. This is one of the ones where this is why you're reminded that you love college football. This is a treat to get to watch a bunch of guys who are never going to play at the next level, but damn it, they can score 60 points. And they're going to do it, man. And they're going to do it over and over. This is a 10 overtime kind of game. This is going to be a shootout.
That would be great.
These are the games that this is why college football is the best.
I already mentioned the Alabama. That might be moved to an official play instead of a circle as getting the money making time. Then my last two I have my eye on. NC State -3 at home against FSU. I think NC State's better. This feels short. Feels like there's way too much credit being given towards Florida State right now at 4-1. I don't think they're that good of a team. And I thought that preseason they played better, have that win over LSU and that win over Louisville when they lost Jordan Travis. But I don't know. I think NC State is legit, and I like them this week. I'm going to look into that, though, why it's so short. Here's one, too. Boise State -7.5 at home. Fresno comes to visit. No Jake Haener. So, in Boise State, Hank Bachmeier decided to transfer. One, he's awful, and they fired their offensive coordinator. Last week against San Diego State, they started off bad, got super hot with their backup quarterback, put up like 38 points. They may have it figured out there right now against a Fresno State team who doesn't have their guy who makes that offense go. That's something I'm keeping an eye on. Maybe that shuffles around a little bit.
One that I like, Brad, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I like Washington over 35.5 against Arizona State. I think it's a get-back game. I think after everything that happened last week and guys are banged up and this and that, Arizona State sucks. They suck. What does Washington's offense do against bad defenses? Throw for 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. Like this is the games Washington was built to score 40 points in. And I think this is coming at a really good time because they're going to need a little bit of confidence boost. And you have what looks like to be one of the doormats of the conference on the schedule.
Anything else you have circled, Tyson, or you want to start giving out your official picks?
There's just a whole bunch of them that's the thing, man. When we do these on Tuesdays, it's really hard, especially, I don't know if you heard, but there's like a hurricane and there's fallout from that kind of make things tough to know as far as weather's going to go. If you're in our chalkboard, you saw last week we put picks out, and then, I didn't take into account the fact that there's going to be monsoons in a couple of these games. So we lost some player props there, but it's tough right now.
Yeah, that's fair. So that's why we're kind of changing it up a bit from last week. Things we want to keep an eye on, kind of give some analysis on. Then we're going to give our official plays for the weekend in that chalkboard, all of them. Some right now we want you to take because we're going to be on it. Like that's just first and foremost. Like there are plays that we like. We've done the research on. We think there's value and we want to play it. So we'll do that. The rest are going to be in that chalkboard. Link in the bio on YouTube as well as on our Spotify and Apple. So make sure to check that out. So let's get into money making time. I already know you just gave out one. It's your play of the week, and that's Tennessee -2.5 that is your play of the week. So I'm going to mark you down for that one. I think you may be aligned with me on this, but Memphis and Houston over. This is on Friday, I believe. Let me double check that here, Tyson.
It is. It's
It
Friday,
is Friday. Okay.
7:30 Eastern, I think, 5:30 my time.
Okay, perfect. So that's sitting at 57.5.
This is gonna be a firecracker, brother.
It's going to be insane. I just don't. I think we are, not we. The odds makers are reacting a little bit to Houston. Their good performance last week on defense. This has been a bad defense all year. Memphis can score a ton of points. I think they put up a ton by themselves, and Houston doesn't have a terrible offense either. Memphis can get got too on defense. I think this is going to be a high scoring game. Wouldn't be surprised if this lands somewhere in the 70s.
Yeah, I'm with you. One of the officials that I want to give out, you kind of alluded to it, but something that I've been on early this week, Arkansas plus 8.5. I was so impressed with the way that they stormed back to get back in the game against Alabama. They didn't roll over. They were like, fuck, we're down 21, whatever, let's go play ball. So to me, this isn't exactly in Mississippi State. I don't think this is the team that can kill them, make them quit because Alabama couldn't do it. I think Arkansas might just be better. We're going to find out on Saturday, but 8.5 to me feels really, really long.
Florida minus 10.5 hosting Missouri. Missouri just came out of is coming off a huge game against Georgia. I really like Florida in this spot. Didn't have to really test themselves against Eastern Washington. It was a tune-up game. Meanwhile, Missouri's in a war. They're going to be banged up. Florida's going to put up a ton of points. I don't care. It's the hook here. We've talked about it before. College football, you rarely ever see these come to true fruition. Last week I played in our chalkboard a 10.5, a 3.5 giving, and a minus 3.5. They all covered. So you don't see it as much in the NFL. It's not as important as in the NFL. Staying on that side, I think Florida wins this easily by 2 touchdowns. So I'm not even worried about that.
And I'm with you on this one. Actually.
You're on this too?
This is one that I have as well. And for me, it's a lot of the same reasons you just mentioned, but the biggest one is the emotional letdown in college is so much greater than it is in the NFL or even college basketball or the NBA, whatever it is. These kids at Missouri just went toe-to-toe with the defending national champions for as long as they possibly could. And all they found out was they're not good enough. And now you got a Florida team, like you said, coming in off a tune-up, getting right, getting a little frustration out after the Tennessee game. And they're back into conference play. And this is not one that Florida can afford to be close. I think Florida covers by 2 touchdowns.
Next one, Oklahoma State minus 9.5. I just think they're just flat out better than Texas Tech by a lot.
God,
Texas Tech's.
We got to stop texting during the week and all this stuff. Man, we got all the same plays.
Which is good. It means we're aligned. Which means we're aligned. It's good for the show. But I just like them here. You know, you're giving me under that 10 too. I know what I just said, but still, it's nice to be under that 2-score number. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump in on Oklahoma State minus 9.5.
And I'm with you. They're just better. Oklahoma State has a real shot here, Brad, at finding themselves in the college football playoff. And that feels weird, but it feels right. I think they're the best team in the conference. That's sure what it looks like to me. Well, we'll find out, I guess. But to me, I think Oklahoma State's going to run the damn table. I had them over 10 wins preseason, and every week I'm growing more and more confident in the mullet. I'm growing more and more confident in that offense. I think the defense still has some things to clean up. The offense does too. I mean, nobody's perfect at this point in the year, and obviously Oklahoma State isn't going to be your Alabama where they just come out and they kick the shit out of everybody and it's not even close. But they're winning games in Oklahoma State ways. And not Oklahoma State of Brandon Wheaton, but they're winning the last 7 years of Oklahoma State football. They're as close to a powerhouse as anybody has been in that conference. And I think it's about time Gundy got some respect.
My second to last one here, I'm going to just go ahead and jump on Utah minus 4.5. I mean, this changed when I was doing my pre-show research. I'm just going to jump on it. Suggests to me that there's early movement towards Utah, early sharps getting involved here. So, and 4 to 4.5, that's not a big enough difference to be like, whoa, play back. I'll just go ahead and play Utah minus 4.5 here.
I mean, there's no downside, right? It's like we don't play bets to hit a push, right? So if it was 4, you want them to win by 5 anyways. And so, like, what's the risk, really? I mean, if they lose by 4, it's like, damn, I could have got my $20 back. But the goal is, with all the other bets, that we don't have to worry about getting the $20 back. So I mean, like I said, Utah's going to come out and punch somebody in the face.
This official one for you too?
That has been official, man. It's Utah every week. You know that.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. All right, Tyson, my last one here, and actually you flipped me with your analysis, your little handicap analysis there. I'm going to play Alabama. I'm just going to do it. The way you do talk, Nick Saban does circle something on the schedule every year, and you said we thought it potentially could be Texas, but turns out he has too much respect for Sarkisian to actually like slaughter him. There's no respect for Jimbo right now. This defense is going to crush that offense of Texas A&M, and I think even with Milroe, if he plays and Bryce Young doesn't, they got enough horsepower to beat a Texas A&M team whose defense got shredded up last week by a good offense in Mississippi State. I'm going to lay it.
Yeah, I got to pull this up here, just make sure I have this number right. Because I have a play on this game that I've been wanting to lock in since the preseason, since they were talking to each other here. I just got to make sure that number is what I have written down. We have team totals away. Yeah, Texas A&M under 13.5 points. Lock it.
Oh my! Was there deuce on that?
No, I don't even care. I didn't even look. Minus 130. Or no, plus 102. Plus 102. That's where we're at, man. They're not scoring 2 touchdowns. You got no
13.5.
You got no shot.
Oh man, that's a good angle.
They're gonna have. It's gonna be goose eggs through 3 quarters. This is going to be as brutal as we've ever seen from Nick Saban, man. This is one of the better teams that he's had as far as he's getting these guys ready to play. We didn't see it in that Texas game, but we've seen it every moment since. And I think part of it, as you said, I don't think it was a too much respect for Sarkisian, but I think it was a lot of guys like not being used to the moment. And we've seen how Alabama's responded, and now this is like, holy shit. Like, Saban wants us up for this one. Like, they're not scoring. I don't know if A&M scores like what would their over under be against Georgia with no vendetta. Yeah, got to be right around that number. I just think Alabama's coming out to send a message. It's the week of messages.
Okay. Oh man, I like that. I wonder what that first half line is. That may be something to look into as well. I might start circling that and taking a peek. All right, that's our money making time. We just gave out some picks. We'll join our, like we said, chalkboard for all of our plays for the weekend. That's definitely where you're gonna get the majority of our content. Like, subscribe, and share our show in the meantime. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. Share it, please, with your friends, with your family, whoever may like gambling or football in general. Make sure if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leave a comment, ask us questions. Let's get back to that. We will answer on the show here. We'll have a special little segment for it, give you a shout out too. Rate it, review it, yada yada. Grizz still rolling for Tyson. How about that? Let's keep the good vibes here. As Penn State won last week too in a iffy game against Northwestern, but they have a bye week before they get ready to play Michigan. So, you get to that healthy and ready to roll, and that's fine.
And hop in that chalkboard, like he was saying, because I mentioned we were, what are we now? We're 8-3, 7-3, 7-1 since week 1. As far as
7-1 since week 1 on our primetime props. Yep,
primetime props go, and the only one that we lost was Debo scoring a touchdown a few weeks ago when he had a couple wide open wheel routes. So we're seeing it well right now, and we're just trying to. Look, you don't have to fade them if you want to. If you think we're wrong, fade us. Like, we just get in there and have a discussion. That's all we're trying to do.
Exactly. Just another way for us to connect and have a good time. In the meantime, follow us on social media, Instagram @_the roundtable pod _ TikTok is the same. And our Twitter is @TRT_pod. Until next time, guys. Peace.